it's a given that you have a technical base and you should be technically qualified. So I don't even go that. That's like your foundation. But what's above that to be successful requires you to be able to communicate. And then the second thing is you got to be able to be a leader and be led. You know, one of the things that I remember most is obviously the academic preparation with the classes, individual classes. But when we had our senior design project, Professor Adam Bruckner made a huge impression on all of us. You know, we had a senior design course, what you guys call capstone these days. It wasn't that fancy word back then. It was just a year-long senior design class on spacecraft systems. And it really set up very much like what we would do in industry in terms of how the class would go. We had a project that was defined. You had a project team. You had project leaders. You had to integrate across all the subsystems. And not only were you working the technical pieces, but you also worked the integration. You had to walk through the presentation design review, which we do at NASA as well. And so it was really good to prepare myself and other students understanding how the process works. And it's more than just the technical design that's important in the real world, I would say. It's about all the interactions and about how you integrate the systems together, how they can function together, and that was really important. And then the other aspect of it was presenting, doing actual presentations. I don't think maybe we had PowerPoint back then, probably early versions of PowerPoint. It was more slides, true slides and viewfoil, but he brought in people from industry and they came and reviewed our design and walked through. So I thought that was a really great setup and a learning experience for us as students in terms of how to operate in that real world environment. Yeah, I mean, Professor Bruckner, I've known for many years. He had a lot of impact on me personally. You know, he went through these design classes, and so I think he had a good structure, and he always was very open to talking with the students, advising the students. And so I got to know him really well. I visited him a lot, office hours and even off office hours, and I think he made himself very available. You know, the other professor, you know, I'll talk about that in my alumni speech, is Dr. Breidenthal, Professor Breidenthal, and I think he's still there. You know, he was probably one of the hardest professors I had in terms of just his tests were very abstract. And I have a kind of a funny story to share in my hopefully my speech about, you know, his questions were always just out of left field in terms of you think you're doing you know, equations and analysis and things. And I remember final he talked about a flock of birds and wanted to know, you know, the drag coefficient of the last bird on the edge of the flock. And those were really tough questions, and I certainly did not do well in this class, and I'll also share that with the graduates. But it was certainly a learning experience. It was, I would say, very humbling, but also just to know that you know, you're not always going to be an expert in everything. And that's one of the things that is a lesson learned, you know, as an outcome, is when you come in as a student, you feel like you have to be, you know, the expert in every subject, and you'll see as you get out to industry. That, you know, you'll focus on particular areas, and as you get higher and higher in leadership and management, you're not going to know everything. You're not going to be an expert. You're not going to be good at certain things, and that's what a team is for. And that's what you know, building a team, bringing people together, and bringing the right experts together, and listening to those experts are really important. And if you think you know it all, and if you think you should know it all or be an expert, I think you're going to really limit yourself. Because there's so many areas that are required to build a spacecraft, that I think that it's very important that you recognize that in your career, and you know, certainly take advantage of the expertise around you. As an intern, it was interesting. You know, I didn't really select an area. They kind of assigned you an area. And I went, and they were a little surprised I was there, and they said, "Okay, well, what do you want to do? You go here." And so that was something new to me, because I thought, oh, I was going to go do something like in aerospace, like in my field, control systems or spacecraft design or something like that. I actually got to put into the computer side, which I had a background in computers already, but I was put in the computer operations of the computer systems on space station. It was great to be out of your field as an intern, and so it was a nice turned out to be a nice surprise. One of my favorite days is got a job offer and starting, permanent. I mean, financially, just the dream of working for NASA. I mean, that's one of my best days where I came in, became a permanent, what we call permanent person versus an intern. But on December 11th when we landed, that's probably got to be a great day for me in my career and at NASA. When we landed Artemis 1 and the relief after all the years we worked, all the people that have put in effort, just saw it. I became a little bit emotional. Some people said I had tears in my eyes. I did, because it was so much work. I mean, it was such a great accomplishment, historic accomplishment when you sit back and all the things, all the challenges that we as a program went through, as I tackled throughout many years of working on the program, and so many people committed, just sacrificed and committed so much time and effort into the project, and to see the culmination, the fruition of all their hard work, and seeing that spacecraft, touchdown, splash down off of San Diego and go, wow, we did it. We did it together. Our sacrifices meant something. And now we're able to, take the next steps, and that meant so much. And so I would say those 2 days really stand out, in my career. And there were a lot of other days too, granted, but certainly those were 2 terrific days. What I see over the years is how impressive the students are. I thought I was doing something impressive with our senior design project, but just the level of depth and expertise that's at the undergraduate level is just amazing. I think the students are so much better prepared than I was when I came in. I always joke that I'd have a hard time, making it into the department now, because the kids are so much smarter, they're so experienced, they have so much background in research and in internships as well. And I think that's a credit to the university, and I just see the degree of students, just terrific students and their capabilities. I tell everybody this: I wish I was a student again. The opportunities are huge. It is, when I graduated, we had a very set of lean years in aerospace. I think only 50% of the 64 kids had anything going on in aerospace after our senior year. That was a statistic I remember. So it was very lean times. I remember applying for a lot of jobs, and they just didn't have any openings. And now, kids hopefully are getting 3 or 4 offers. There's not only things to do, with commercial space in low Earth orbit, but there's rovers and challenges to go to the moon and go to Mars on the commercial side. There's NASA that's driving a lot of the vision of what we're trying to do, exploration. So Artemis is certainly a huge program that allows that. But within Artemis, there's Orion, the transportation system. We have the landers. We have rovers. We have surface systems. We have a Gateway, which is the space station around the moon. I mean, there's just so many opportunities to work all kinds of different fields. And plus, we've spent 22 years manning the International Space Station, and that research that's been going on from the human body perspective alone could be a whole area for people to engage with. That's not even in the department, right, of aeronautics and astronautics. So I think from just a wealth of and the depth of work that's available, and the energy and the opportunities are just huge. My number one advice is find a job that you're passionate about. When I say passionate, it's not so much broad, hey, I'm passionate about space exploration. But when you're passionate about is, hey, if you can't sit at a desk and you are a hands-on person, find a job that's hands-on. And there's a lot of opportunities, like I said. You could build the spacecraft, get your hands on spacecraft. You could do testing, right? If you like to sit in a dark corner, drink Diet Mountain Dew, and program, then find a job for that. If you have to interact with a lot of people and that's not what you want to do, then don't get jobs that you have to interact. I mean, that's the passion that I'm talking about, besides obviously passion for the space program. I think that's really important that you find that niche, you find that area, and my advice is work in that area. Get your technical base. Then you could do something else if you want to do something, or stick with it. We have people that are 30, 40-year experts on guidance systems for entry. World experts, great. We need people like that. And then we have people like me who have worked a lot of different areas in aerospace in terms of testing, design, development of software, things like that, where my experience and my expertise, I was able to gain up those skills to build up to the next level at the system level, the spacecraft level, and now at the program manager level. So those are people that are also needed. But your foundation and the base you establish should be a technical base. And you should pursue those things that you enjoy. Because in the end, you need to come in every day to go to work. You want to be, you don't want to go, gosh, I got to come to work again. You want to be happy when you step through the door and go, God, I'm excited to be here. And that's, doing something you're passionate about or like to do that fits your personality. And that's really important. What are the keys to success? I think not many students ask, what's the key to success? You graduate and then you go, oh, I got a job. Well, what's the key to success? And this is maybe fairly well known, but it's hard to apply. Communication. I think a lot of people undervalue communication. You're engineering. My wife is funny. She's not an engineer, and she's like, engineers don't communicate. You're like, we're not trained to communicate. We do our work. We do analysis. You write computer code. Our work communicates what happens. But when you go in industry, it's really important to communicate both from a written perspective and from a presentation perspective, which is really oral communication, right? Is telling people what you found, describing to people what the issue is or what risk it is. If you can't communicate that, nobody understands. No matter how smart you are, no matter how much work you've done, if you cannot communicate that out and people can't understand it, that's really one of the fundamental things that I think people have obstacles, because they go, well, why don't you understand it? I'm telling you this data and this information. Well, a lot of people aren't as involved as the individual doing the analysis or the data, so they can't see the end result as well unless you kind of lead the horse to water, as I call it. You have to steer people, and you have to give them context. And so a lot of that communication is like, here's the answer, here's what you need to do. And if you don't have context, especially as a leader trying to make very tough decisions, you need some context, and you need to understand that risk. Because the easy decisions are very black and white. The mathematical and the physics part of whether you can accomplish a certain trajectory or not is very well known. It's when you take risk and you say, oh, this spacecraft system isn't designed exactly to requirements, can we still use it or not? Those are, I wouldn't say judgment's not the right word. Those are decisions that you weigh against the risk, against what the programmatic benefits are, whether it's schedule, cost, et cetera. And so all those things people need to be able to communicate very clearly.